Hey, what's up, guys? This is Reiki V, and you're listening to episode number 34 of the Elite Fitness Podcast. And today, we're going to talk to Mr. Dylan Gemelli about YK-11 and RAD 140. But before we get started with that interview, I want to tell you guys about my brand new product called N2 Transoderm. Now, N2 Transoderm is a topical cream you apply to your shoulders. You can apply it to other body parts as well for different results, but mainly the shoulders to increase testosterone levels. N2 Transoderm has several ingredients. One of them is dihydroepiandrosterone. It is suspended in a topical emulsion that you apply right on the skin. Typically, you apply it to the shoulders just as you would a testosterone gel like, say, Axiron or Testim or Androgel. Dihydroepiandrosterone that is contained in N2 Transoderm is a precursor to the biosynthesis of testosterone in your body. When applied directly to this area of your skin, it increases your anabolic age. It becomes very noticeable very quickly. Because the dihydroepiandrosterone suspended in N2 Transoderm is an emulsion, then it passes directly through the bloodstream. This makes N2 Transoderm much more effective at converting to testosterone than trying to take this as an oral-based product. One of the reasons you may have acne on your back as a teenager is due to the concentration of the enzymes in that part of the body responsible for steroid genesis. That's the creation of steroids, basically. Other parts of the body, like the abdomen, like your abdomen, say your abs, they don't just don't have the concentration of steroid-producing enzymes like the shoulders do. So when the dihydroepiandrosterone is applied to the shoulders, it converts first to androstenediol and then to testosterone. These two hormones are very anabolic. When N2 Transoderm is applied to the shoulders, it will increase the rate of conversion into androstenediol, which acts as a cortisol controlling agent. N2 Transoderm is going to be the strongest pro-hormone product you're going to be able to get your hands on over the counter. I designed it this way because, quite frankly, when you take this ingredient orally, your liver is going to do away with much of it. It's going to destroy it. And then what little does make it into your bloodstream through digestion, you have no control of what enzymes come in contact with it. So it could be converted into other hormones that are not going to be conducive towards helping you build muscle and get leaner. So using this pro-hormone and putting it right on the shoulders and upper back is going to make sure that, one, it doesn't get destroyed by the liver, and two, that it comes in contact first with the enzymes that are going to turn it into androgenic hormones that are going to help build muscle. So check it out, guys. Go to Transoderm.com. That's N2. That's N, the number 2. TRANSODERM. N2Transoderm.com. Or you could just go to my website, needtobuildmuscle.com, and look for it right. It should be right at the front, or just put it in and just put it in the search bar. You'll be able to find it. It's a great product, very strong. You're definitely going to enjoy it. Now, without further ado, guys, I promised the Dylan Gemelli interview on YK-11 at RAD 140, and we're going to get right to that. So let's go now. Yeah, so YK-11 is one of those new wave of SARMs, and it just seems like there's a new SARM or peptide coming out every 6 months nowadays. And YK-11 seems to gain popularity rather quickly. So what do you think about YK-11, and where do you place it in comparison to some of the other SARMs and things out there?
You know, YK-11 is a good one actually to discuss. It's difficult because it's hard to even classify it just completely as a SARM. You know, like, and we've talked about this several times, but you remember it was always just a couple. You know, it was 2866 S4 and then GW came along, LGD, but there were just a few, but they were kind of similar, different benefits, but kind of on the similar wave of, oh, they're just designed to prevent muscle wastage, but 2866 provides your healing. LGD is a little bit more bulking, but still kind of the same premise. Then you start getting into these newer developed SARMs like YK-11, for example, or even RAD-140, not so much to YK-11's extent, right? But they become more. So YK-11 is a myostatin inhibitor, all right? And it behaves similarly to like, DHT steroids. It's kind of a completely different animal. And one of the things about me that well is I'm kind of standoffish with stuff when it first, like I want like a year or two before I'm willing to get behind it or start preaching about it or start spewing facts, because when something brand new comes out, you can't just go, oh, well, everything that's written about it or is said is true, when there's not. And it's not just studies, because studies are great, but you and I both know everybody responds to things differently. And then I want to see cumulative effects of, okay, like 30% of the people are reacting this way, or 50%, not just a few studies with 60 people that are randomly selected, or that are selected with a state of mind of, oh, I want it to look like it came out a certain way. So I need time. That's why it took me a long time to even discuss YK-11, to be honest. I used it. I think it's been about a year now. I absolutely impressed all the way around with it. Really, really impressive, for a variety of reasons. One of the things I'll tell you about it too is it kind of induces muscle cells to produce more follistatin, and that helps to inhibit myostatin in the body, which then results in more muscle growth, right? So there's a lot to it, man. There's you got to really kind of get into it, and I've spent a lot of time reading and watching and reading logs and seeing how people's blood work came out and coaching people on it. I still don't feel like I know it even as much as I've done with it, like I do with everything else. But those were out in 2013, 14. So although I know a great deal about it, that's one of those things I like to keep learning and watching, because it's only been 3, 4, 5 years. It's been more out there, and in just the last couple of years, really, it's more prevalently used. So very interesting compound, though, to say the least, in terms of calling it a SARM.
Yeah, it is a steroidal selective androgen receptor modulator. It does look like a steroid on paper, and apparently it acts a lot of the same way. For guys out there that might not know this yet, when we're talking about myostatin is what regulates muscle growth in your bodies, what keeps your muscles from continuing to grow and grow and grow. Evolution doesn't really want us to have huge muscles, because you got to then consume a ton of calories to feed those, and having high caloric requirements is not all that conducive to a species really being able to survive long term, especially with our body type. So myostatin is there to kind of make sure that muscle doesn't grow too big, and so that humans stay as efficient energy-wise as possible. So inhibiting myostatin is really the holy grail. Is what I think scientists are going to be focusing on from the years to come, because that seems to be the best way, the best shortcut to muscle growth over most other things. Now, let me ask you this, and we've had this conversation in private before. I'd like to get other people to understand that. Why you said that YK-11 is not one that you really recommend for women, or that you really think women should be taking. Why is that, and how would you compare YK-11 for women, right? As far as something like oxandrolone or Winstrol?
Without further seeing many women use it, because if you search like around and look for women in YK-11, you're not going to really come up with a lot here. And I can even tell you real quickly, because you just don't see many women that really run it. And something I'm and I've made this very clear in the past. I don't like women running any steroids at all, to be honest with you, not even Anavar. I just don't feel comfortable. I don't feel like women, not that they are, it doesn't seem like something, in my opinion, that a women should even be doing. It just seems to have much more effects on them. One of the things about YK-11 that I did see about women was the kind of drastic changing of a menstrual cycle. I've seen total loss of menstruation, or very strange cycle behavior patterns. And it just has thrown women off kind of more so than anything I've really seen. The only other one that possibly does that is MK-2866. And that's hit or miss with women. But this one, in what I've read, which isn't a ton, you can go in and find some women that actually have put things out on message boards and forums or different websites asking questions. And that's kind of the thing that you will continue to see pop up, is about the menstrual cycles and very odd attitude changes, and the chances of like virilization and things like that, from what I understand, are pretty low. It's not something that I would really worry about, but I just get scared on anything that's steroidal or has any kind of effect like that on hormones, to that extent that male attributes could occur, even though in stuff that we know it won't. I'm just one of those hesitant people, and I've been given shit, called a pussy about the way I approach stuff, but I just prefer to be more cautious. And okay, so let's say that we found out of 100 women that took YK-11, 5 of those 100 experienced virilization, or let's just even say 2. That would still be a huge red flag to me. To every single woman I talk to, I say, look, it's a possibility, and just knowing that's a possibility, I say fuck it. If a woman does want to run YK-11 and test it out, I would be very careful with the dosing. I generally only recommend 10 milligrams a day for men. So as a woman, I would be like in the 2.5 range, possibly 5. But I wouldn't go any higher than that at all. And I would keep it more so to like a 6 to 8 weeks, as opposed to a man that was going to run it, 12 weeks. I would just be I would tread lightly, I guess is what I'm saying. So, but then again, I'm a little bit more conservative with dosing and hesitancy and being more careful. I feel like people are too loose with that shit, and that kind of brings on that negative outlook. So like the way that the media portrays steroids, or, government or things like that, a lot of that, and a lot of them getting that, is getting misinformation from people that don't know what they're doing. And the people that don't know what they're doing are the ones causing all of this problem, because then it makes it look far worse than it should be. So that's why I err on the side of caution so often. And somebody doesn't like it, fuck it. That's just the way that I am. So, but yeah, I would say be very careful and tread lightly if you're a female, if you're going to run it. But if you're intent on it, I would say do it very, very moderately. Then
one of the reasons this is a very soft debate about this, because I wanted to ask you, one of the reasons I don't think women out there should be using steroids, definitely not women who are just doing it for a hobby, who just want to gain muscle a little faster. It's because steroids can change your voice, and once you stop taking the steroids, all of those effects, all of those benefits from the steroids are now gone, but your voice still sounds not as feminine as it used to. Now, in the case of YK-11, right, if we think, or we know that it can build muscle somewhere along the lines of something like an Anavar possibly could, but it won't cause voice changes or enlargement of the clitoris or additional hair growth. Sometimes those hairs get activated and they'll continue to grow. And now this lady's got to shave in some additional areas that she didn't before the cycle, even after the cycle's all gone. So if we could say, hey, you're not going to have those issues with YK-11, but you will have them with Anavar, which when I'm on the podcast, I say to women, Anavar is probably the only steroid I think any female should consider taking it if they really are taking. And obviously I make the distinction between just a female who's just doing it to look good as a hobby versus, a girl who's winning trophies, trying to win shit, and she's got coaches and she's got dreams and hopes in this fitness world. So I guess for the regular female out there who will want to dabble with something, why would you or am I wrong? Maybe I'm answering myself. Or would you say, hey, if you're going to go as far as using Anavar, use YK-11 instead? I mean, what is your feeling on that? I hope I asked a good question. I don't know if you understood
it. Understood it. I was just sitting here nodding my head yes the whole time. Everything you said, I didn't want to interrupt because every single point you made, top to bottom, I agree with. It's like it was like me talking, basically, and but we've talked about this, so we already kind of know that with each other. I'm in the same exact boat. I don't even like recommending Anavar to women. Rick, when I lived in Vegas, and I believe this was like 2013. I'm bad with my years. 2013, 2014. You remember when I moved out there? And
yep.
There was a place that I used to go to Botox to, right? And I also went in there. I'd get massages and things like that. And so I'd see the same people there a lot in the waiting rooms. Anyway, there was a girl out there, and she was in very, very good condition. You could tell she lifted too, not like a big bodybuilder, but anyway, she ended up figuring out who I was on YouTube and stuff after talking to me, and we started talking. She had used Anavar, and I'm not kidding you, like 14 months straight. And she had a complete meltdown internally. She was telling me all about it. No sex drive. It was bad. And she was wanting me, after she found out who I was, to kind of coach her. And I said, I don't think I can help you. Like, you need to see a doctor and go get that kind of help. This is even something that, because at that time, that's something I had never, seen or heard of. So, no, I'm with you all the way. And yes, if you were going to make a decision between YK-11 and Anavar, I would feel 1,000,000% better about you going with YK-11 as a female, because I really don't see and haven't seen zero reports of any type of virilization, male attributes. And what you said was one of my main arguments against Clen. You use Clen, you lose weight right there on the spot. Of course, Clen's powerful as shit. But one, you can't stay on Clen long term. We all know that. Two, it's got negative short and long-term effects on your fucking heart. And three, a lot of people end up gaining more back after they're done than they actually lost. And like you said, well, when the steroid effects were up and you don't have the same results, but you still got all the side effects, then what? So it's like you weigh the risk versus reward, right? That's what I tell people with Clan all the time. How can you possibly fucking tell me that losing weight for 3 to 4 weeks is worth all this other nonsense that's going to go on that could fuck you up long term and make you in worse condition than you already were? Explain that to me. That doesn't make any sort of sense. So I agreed with every last word that you said. Everything.
Yeah, I guess for women, I mean, we know on the flip side that there are better things. If they're trying to lose weight, GW is not impacting on their hormonal pathway, so sex hormone pathway. Ostarine might be a milder, better option if you're going to go with androgen receptor activation. Austrian might be a safer option than YK-11. So there are definitely
Yeah.
safer options out there. But I guess, yeah, I got my answer. I mean, if it was a toss up, if it was a decision between Anavar and YK-11 for this female that is just hell bent on doing something, YK-11 would be the safer, better option, short and long term. It seems like.
If you ask me 10 times, I give you the same answer all 10 times, if that tells you anything. And it would be go with the YK-11 for sure. Every time. Doesn't matter. You could reword it, rephrase it, fix it up, roll it in a fucking ball. I'm going to answer it the same way every time.
So let me ask you a little bit more about YK-11 and the actual applications for it. Now, let's say I'm a male trying to put together a good cycle, and I might do let's say I'm looking to cut. Let's say I'm looking to cut, which is a little bit out of season for the time of year, but I've been doing plenty of content on bulking recently. So let's take the cutting route on this one for now. I'm trying to cut. What would be a good way to incorporate? Let's say I've already been using steroids and I feel really good on Primo Bowling, and I do pretty good on I don't know, Trend, Masteron, and I want to add an oral to the mix. And my options for adding, let's say I want to add an oral to the mix, like YK-11. So put together for us, help us put together with the guys out there a good kind of cutting stack or maybe recomposition stack using YK-11 as your oral and maybe some injectables, steroids as your backup. And if there's definitely more SARMs that should be added, we can definitely discuss it. But what would be a good way to incorporate it and bring together YK-11 with some of the more conventional steroids we already know for a good cutting or recomposition cycle?
So you already know the kind of cycles that I like. I like Test Primo and Anavar, or Test Primo and Winstrol, or Test Primo and basically anything, right? And the first thing that comes to mind is Test Primo YK-11. That to me would be just a sweet stack. And I would go a step further and add RAD 140. We're going to talk about that later because I'm absolutely blown away with that. I mean, GW for me is always going to be my favorite due to my running and but let's just forget that. Let's just remove that. S4 has always been my favorite. I think RAD 140 might have taken that spot, but we'll talk about that later. But I think that if you went Test Primo, YK, and RAD 140, and if you only want to do just the YK, it'd be great. But if you add the RAD, oh my gosh, that would be my first boom. That's right there. And then I think that cycle would do just amazing. Absolutely amazing. Now, if you want to go for a bigger recomp, well, then you would want to go test Deca Primo with the two SARMs. That would be even better. I love the test Deca Primo combination. That's just, and I've actually done videos on that combo. It would stack well with Equipoise too. So you could go test Equipoise, YK-11, or there again, I would generally keep RAD and YK-11 stacked together. The synergy there and what those two can do together, that to me, that's one of the best SARMs duo stacks you could possibly ever consider because it does everything. Every damn thing is covered with just those two, literally. So if you don't want to, I like to run a little bit bigger SARM cycles because although SARMs are very similar in their base, like we want to prevent muscle wastage, there's so many different specialties. So, like with the muscle hardening on S4 and the vascularity, right? The myostatin inhibitor with YK-11, but then also there's other things YK does in terms of the muscle hardening, which then in turn feeds off of the S4, right? So there's a lot of different stacks here that I would prefer, but if you want to keep it nice and simple, YK and RAD 140, and you're just gonna, man, I'm telling you, I stick by that all the way. That would be the stack.
Are there any benefits that maybe people don't understand of using YK-11 on a deep caloric deficit? Let's say, I mean, we know Primo for years has been the bro science behind it is that it may be the only steroid that allows you to gain some muscle mass while on a caloric deficit. Is there something similar that you've seen happening with YK-11 or I'll give you another quick example. Trembolone, if you're trying, and Superdrol, if you're trying to bulk and gain mass, you got to eat plenty on those or your results are going to be negligible. There's some steroids, some of these compounds where your caloric intake will really dictate if you can get the most out of it. I'm not too familiar with YK-11. Shit, not a lot of people are. What is the relationship between caloric intake, say, and YK-11 and the way it works?
Oh, why you can eat in a deficit with YK and still hold and gain muscle. Obviously, we know you're going to gain a lot more muscle if you're not in a deficit and you're eating and feeding properly. But here, I mean, for instance, I'm not even using YK-11 right now on my cycle. I'm doing S4 RAD 140 and GW and ACP 105, and I eat in a pretty significant deficit just because I would have to, Rick, if I wanted to just eat at maintenance every day, I'd be about 4,000 calories based on what I figured, because just on cardio alone, I do almost 2,000 calories a day. It's like 1,700. And then when you factor in how hard I'm fucking lifting now, and I've still gained 10 pounds on this cycle. Now, I will say in fairness, I had lost a lot of weight with stress and things. So some of that I should have had, but my point is you can get away with a pretty large deficit with a lot of different SARMs and still not only hold muscle, but still add it as well. And YK would, if you were asking me to pick the best ones to do that with, YK would be damn near at the top. Damn near at the top. I could make an argument for RAD and LGDs and those, but YK would be right at the top. So yes, in short, absolutely, you can do that.
So it's a good compound to run during a caloric deficit to maintain mass. Do you think it could build a little bit of mass the way people think Primo Bowling does, or not that far?
I would say right on par, to be honest with you. But like you said, like we said right at the beginning, YK on paper is pretty much a steroid. I mean, it is what it is, but I think we both know that. So it's not like we're making some huge leap here to say, oh, well, you could get this very similar, or maybe even more so than with a steroid. I don't. That nonsense needs to stop in terms of what things can and cannot do. I mean, it's proven through logs and everything what people gain on YK-11. I fucking used it, so I can vouch for it. I've coached thousands of people using it, which I can easily vouch for. So yeah, I wouldn't have a big issue saying that it could have similar types of properties at all, to be honest with you. So no,
that's an interesting one. What is let's talk about dosages and cycles and run. How much YK-11 should a person run for how long for a good cutting cycle?
I don't really like to say to go any higher than 10 milligrams a day. I just don't have any comfort with that. The half-life is shorter. You got to split the dose at least twice a day. 3 times a day would be optimal. But twice a day, I think you'll get away with and be just fine. 8 to 12 weeks, definitely don't go over 12 weeks. I've seen people go up to 30 milligrams a day. I guess I would have comfort even up to 15, but I don't think there's any reason nor need to go any higher than that, to be honest with you. You know how it gets, you get to a point where it's like diminishing returns based upon incorporating too many negative side effects. So there's a certain point where you're not gaining anymore, you're hurting yourself. And I don't foresee any reason to go any higher than that, or to exceed 12 weeks. And you can still get, I generally recommend 12-week SARM cycles. You can still do quite a bit on 8 weeks with YK. But I have no issue going 12 with it. And that's what you'll see me recommend when I write cycles out. But Yeah, no need to go any higher than that, brother. And 2 to 3 times a day on the split dosing. Like, 5 milligrams 3 times a day would be perfectly fine.
And as far as liver toxicity with YK-11 or toxicity to any other organs, what do we know about it right now as far as what kind of toxicity we're looking at?
There shouldn't, excuse me, I'm talking too much. There really shouldn't show to be any kind of toxicity. I've basically anecdotally, it's shown to have a little bit of increase in liver enzymes. Nothing else. Like, I haven't seen. I will bring up the hair loss. We didn't get to that. I've seen reports of hair loss with people before, but then again, that's if you're very, very prone to MPB. But in terms of toxicity, I've seen some people have some elevated liver enzymes. Not a lot else in terms of like blood pressure or cholesterol, few and far between on that. But I don't think it's ever a bad idea to run protectants. And this is not a shameless plug because I've been doing this for how many years, but I just run your N2Guard, and people don't realize the importance of protecting yourself, and that any kind of performance enhancing drug could potentially negatively have an effect on your organs. Even if they're not like toxic, they could still in some way, even if it's slight, and it never hurts to protect yourself. These aren't like alkylated steroids here, so toxicity of any kind is not going to be like with methylation and things like that. But I still think it's smart to protect yourself no matter what. And just knowing there's a possibility there of liver toxicity, you should be protecting yourself. It's a no-brainer in my view. So,
any other major side effects someone could experience from YK? But let me just reel it back. So 10 milligrams a day is about as much as you want to do. If you could split that up into 4 times per day, that would be ideal because it has a short half-life, correct?
You could go 15 if you want, 5 milligrams 3 times a day, or if you want to keep it a little lower, 10 milligrams. 3 times a day would be optimal dosing. But like, for instance, S4, 3 times a day would be optimal. I just do it twice a day, always have, and have always had tremendous results. I don't think it's that short of a half-life like SR 9009, where I recommend dosing it so many times a day, but 2 to 3 times a day is fine.
That's great. Now, as far as other side effects, what other side effects, external or internal, some that can be seen or some that aren't quite seen or felt, should someone be concerned with when it comes to YK-11 use?
I've seen some aggression reported with it. I don't remember getting real aggressive on it myself, but I was dosing it moderately. But I have definitely seen people that have reported that. Some of the things that I've seen too were some like kind of like joint weakness, tendon weakness in some people, not a ton of people, but some people, hair loss, like I said, and then testosterone suppression, not to the extent of a steroid, but it's present. You're going to need a PCT. One thing about a lot of SARMs is you won't see your LH and FSH go down. In fact, some people see it go up, even if their total test goes down. With YK-11, you will see those drop. So that's why it's not a bad idea to run a full PCT with it. A lot of times we can get away with the mini PCT on the lighter suppressive, SARMs like 2866 or to a lesser extent LGD 4033, things like that. But this one, when you're hitting it all the way around, it's never a bad idea to run a full PCT. But those are generally the areas that I see the most side effects reported on.
All right, guys, that was the first part of this interview. We're going to talk about Rat 140 on the next episode. Now, guys, neither I or any of my guests are doctors. Please do not take anything we say as doctor's advice. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. You must contact your own doctor before taking any drugs or supplements. None of the statements I made about any of the supplements or any of the compounds discussed in this podcast were approved by the FDA. None of my products or any other products I feature in any of my podcasts are meant to cure or diagnose any diseases. Again, please make sure to check with your doctor before taking any supplements at all.